Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to yet another exciting episode of the Vinny Eastwood Show, broadcasting from New Zealand, the fabulous, the fluoridated, the allegedly less corrupt country in the world in the Schwarzenegger sense of the word. And my very special guest today is none only by the nomenclature Manfred. Welcome to the program, the wellness mentor.
Hi, Vinny. Thanks for inviting me on.
Well, everybody's got a backstory. I'd like to hear yours, so if you would indulge me and the listeners, tell us a little bit about yourself and what it is you do.
Okay, so I was actually born and grown up in Austria and educated as a classical musician, which is very much a city lifestyle. And I got famous quite quickly and early in life, and I needed a break by the time I was 26 and traveled around the world, got to New Zealand and decided not to go back to my old life in Austria and did the opposite on the opposite side of the planet. So rather than being a city person and a classical musician, I became a busker and a minstrel, a free musician traveling the world, playing the flute with all kinds of bands and having a great time and learning a lot about health in the process, because in New Zealand I met people I would have never met in Austria. They were growing their own food, living on the land, having a great time. And as I got 5 planets in Sagittarius and I'm a fire monkey, so whatever I do quite intense and extreme. So after a while of learning about health and how the body works and a lot about nutrition, I decided that if you really want to be healthy, you got to grow your own food and live in the garden. And I wasn't going to wait till I had the money to buy the land. There was enough land in New Zealand to find a place where nobody wanted to live and just live there and grow food and be happy forever after.
You know, it's funny you should mention that, because I was just thinking in terms of New Zealand yesterday, just the abundance of places we have where no one wants to live.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? Yeah, in Austria I wouldn't have lasted 3 days in a place like this without being moved on. And in New Zealand I stayed in one place in the Buller Gorge in the South Island for 10 years. And nobody ever said, "What are you doing here?" or "Move on." And when I parked up there, I didn't know how long it would last. And, you know, being a man of the moment, I was there for good. I was there forever.
Have you noticed whenever you're doing what you're dreaming or whatever kind of needs to be done, impediments just sort of disappear?
Yeah.
And all these little weird mystical helping hands come out of the woodwork to not start your journey. You have to do that by yourself, but they prop you up along the way. Like you couldn't continue without these little helping factors. I'm acting under the assumption that you were there. A lot of people knew you were there, and there was some kind of community support, or was it all roughing it alone sort of thing?
I would have liked that community support. Like, you know, human nature is that we are tribal. And I was looking for the tribe who wanted to live outside this crazy system and without money and go back to the land and really do it without being on the dole or, you know, growing dope or anything that a lot of other people did, right? I really wanted to step out of that whole system and go back to nature and be real human being connected to the earth. And I thought that a lot of people would want that lifestyle. But this was 30 years ago in the 80s. So people weren't ready for that. You know, even my friends, the musicians, wanted me to be on the dole like them. And that wasn't me. So I moved there waiting for the tribe. And 10 years later, moved out, giving up on the tribe that wanted to live without money, and did something else. So there's quite a few really long stories in that process, of course, but we haven't got time here for all that.
Oh, no, well, trust me, we do.
Basically, what happened was I spent a couple of years by myself as a hermit on a plateau in the Buller Gorge looking down on the river. And in Europe, that place would have had a castle on it, or at least the ruins of a castle. And in New Zealand, it was untouched. And just because a fire went through, there was no trees on that plateau, and I parked up my house truck there and started planting a garden. And after quite some time by myself, I had a few realizations. And the main one was that the negativity that I put on the world and on other people and the authorities that I was moving away from, the whole negativity was still in my head. The world was still a bad place all day long in my head, and I was still not good enough. And while I was running away from people who made me feel like I wasn't good enough, after a couple of years by myself, not being good enough every day, I had that realization that basically the essence of the realization was that I got ripped off by the conditioning that said, love your neighbor as you love yourself. But those same people haven't taught me how to love myself. In fact, they made loving myself a bad thing, a selfish thing. And if I stood outside the church in my hometown as a kid with a sign around my neck saying I love myself, they would have put me away and I would have never got to New Zealand. So the loving yourself was a total no-no, but the expectation was to love your neighbor as you love yourself. And that's the problem in this human condition, that we don't know how to love ourselves. And in fact, it's a bad thing.
We know how to be selfish and materialistic, and we think that benign narcissism and the desire to achieve and better mankind is a really selfish and egotistical thing that should be stamped out and criticised at every turn. That about right?
Yeah, and we pretend not to be selfish in order to be good, and all day long we're really not good enough. So that feeling of not good enough is very close to the surface in us.
Well, I came up with a really profound realization over the weekend, Manfred. Never underestimate a man's ability to play mind games with himself and win.
Yes, that's a good one. So while I was working that out, that my concept of love was actually flawed, because you can't love anybody else outside of yourself more than you love yourself. And if you don't love yourself, then anybody you love will make you feel inadequate and not good enough. And that's why relationships never lasted. So when I realized that, I was kind of ready for love, for a real relationship. And I decided I'm going to go out there and find a woman that was extreme enough to live with me in the middle of nowhere. And I did. It wasn't hard. I found a woman that was looking for me. And so then there was two hermits living together peacefully, working on the love between man and woman and why it used to always fail. And our agreement was, you have no right to be unhappy ever. And it's taking away the right to be unhappy in a relationship, where you're unhappy because of what the other one did or didn't do or said or didn't say, and we've taken that as our commitment for our relationship. You've got no right to be unhappy ever. That doesn't mean you can't be unhappy, but you've got no right to put it on the other one. And hey, this is 23 years later now, and we've never argued because we look after our own backyard, keep that clean instead of complaining about the other one. So that really worked well.
It's interesting. Relationships is like an episode of the New Zealand television series Neighbours at War, where the one person who really has a problem with the fence line is the one who happens to be a hoarder.
Yeah. And there's plenty of them in New Zealand. Yeah.
Isn't it interesting? We always see the problems outside of ourselves, and we don't realise that a lot of times, not every time, but a lot of times, the problems we're experiencing in our own lives and the problems we've got with other people are actually just us really being pissed off at ourselves, and we want somebody else to blame. And we don't realise that actually that's not fair. You can't blame everybody else for your own problems that you can solve yourself.
That's right. And no, my truth is that I'm creating my life. I'm the center of my universe. So everything that happens in my universe is my creation. And if I don't like it, I have to change. Not everybody else has to change. And that worked for me very well. So we were in that setting in the Upper Buller Gorge for 10 years. My wife and I for 8 years, but I was there for 10. And we were there for good, like it was like idyllic. It was a very work-intensive lifestyle, but we were happy to do that 16 hours a day running for survival just to sit down and eat the meal that we grew. I was the richest man on the planet without money because I knew the richest man on the planet could never eat that food that I had for dinner. And so that was my happiness and my paradise. And then my wife, who was hormonally infertile all her life and was 47 at that time, thought she had early menopause. And because she's been infertile, nothing else really came up at all in her mind. But after about 3 months, that menopause started behaving rather strangely. It started moving around. And eventually we had to realize that we're going to have a baby. So that changed everything again. There was many turns in my life where it changed 180 degrees. This was one of those. And our idyllic lifestyle was, of course, not sustainable with bringing up one child in the middle of nowhere with 2 adults. So from that moment where we realized Anna was pregnant, it was clear that our time in our paradise was limited and we had to get back out into the world and bring up a child and make money and get it together in the world again. And so for 2 years, I knew I had 2 years to, because when the baby grows up, until the 2 years, they don't really need anybody else. But when they're 2 and after that, they need other kids and the society really to grow up into. So in those 2 years, I came up with several ideas of what I could do other than going back to the old comfort zone with my qualifications, and which all involved living in a city, being a conductor and a flautist and a classical musician, music teacher, whatever I could have done, I would have had to move back into a city lifestyle, which I wasn't prepared to do. And any other ideas I had, how we could make money, all involved money. They say it takes money to make money. And so I didn't have any money. We've been 10 years. Well, I've been 15 years because I've been traveling before that outside the money system totally, right? So making whatever I needed from busking. And we lived on next to no money. We bought olive oil and grains. We bartered for things with the grain farmer. We'd go and work there and come home with grains. And so from coming out of the bush with 40, and my wife was 47, I was 40, and we had this baby with no assets, no bank account, nothing, right? And no inheritance coming. So I had to reinvent myself. And every time Anna said to me, "What do you want to do in the world?" I said, "I want to talk about love." Because I know we got ripped off in our education, in our whole conditioning, the love was wrong. And since every human being is looking for love, but they're looking outside that somebody else loves them, I wanted to teach that. And it was kind of the most silly thing to say when you're sitting in the middle of nowhere, you've got a baby growing up, and the conversation is about how we're going to make money. And the man of the house says, I want to talk about love. But I didn't compromise. I knew this was the most important thing I could deliver to humanity in my life, is to make people aware that the concept of love is wrong in our head and has been wrong for many generations. And that's why we have all these troubles. So, but how to turn this into money, it was kind of impossible. Even though I had very strong, this is all I want to do, but who's going to listen to me and who's going to pay me for it? And so that was 2 years of holding that space for something to come into my life where I could talk about love and get paid for it and make a lot of money, because I grew up with a single mother, and now she's saved from the food. She saved on everything so that we could have a holiday. But during the year, everything I wanted, we couldn't afford. I know I got what I needed. We weren't totally poor, but there were so many times I wanted something, and the answer was, we can't afford this. And of course, as a traveling musician, I saw a lot of that. The people I was with, their kids wanted something. Oh, no, we can't afford this, we can't afford that. And all of a sudden, here I am having a kid. And I never wanted to have to say no because we can't afford it. I wanted to say no for real reasons, but not about money. So here I am with nothing and wanting to create an income so I could bring up my child and never have to say we can't afford this. It was a pretty impossible goal at the time, it seemed, And then this beautiful young man and the young woman came up on our plateau that were friends of friends who told them we were there, and they were on the way to the West Coast. And this guy, Brandon, they stayed overnight, and we had this interesting conversations about money. And he said things like, Buckminster Fuller in the 80s calculated all the money that was on the planet and all the people. And he figured out what, if he gave everybody their fair share, how much money that was. Have you got any idea how much that was then in the 80s?
I really have absolutely no idea.
Because, of course, all this time since the 80s, the printing presses have been printing money 24/7. So there's a lot more money now. And
well, even worse than that, they haven't been printing anything. They've just been making up digital currency, and there's quadrillions of derivative debt or something like there, which is, I think, more than the physical wealth of the world, like 6 times over, and these bankers just made it up out of thin air. And so they're going to use it as a debt cloud to just basically suck everybody in, and eventually we'll all be slaves, owned by somebody else. That's their plan. I've got different plans of my own, though.
We've all been slaves for a long time on that level.
Uh-huh.
It's never changed. It just invented money to make us feel a bit better.
Yeah, I mean, like, how much more free is a free-range chicken versus a caged chicken? All right? Maybe a bit more free? Or is it still just a slave chicken?
Yeah.
We're just free-range.
When you really know what free-range chicken means, it's not much different. But in the 80s, they were still printing money. It was a bit closer to the real. It was maybe no longer backed up by gold in the 80s already, but pretty close.
This is when John Key was in the stock market.
So Buckminster Fuller was a very, very intelligent man, and he figured it out in whichever way he did that, that if he gave everybody their fair share, it would be $16 million. $16 million. And so this beautiful young man's telling me that, and I've been living without money for 15 years, and I'm thinking, gosh, somebody else has got my share, and I don't really like what they're doing with it. And then the next thought was, gosh, if you now, right now, gave everybody on the planet their 16 million US dollars and said, here you go, here's your fair share, and divided all the money equally by the people, and then you put yourself up on the moon and look down, what you would see is how the money flows, just as a mental picture, really. You know? You would see the money very quickly flowing back to the same people. Because there's only a few people on this planet who are financially literate. They understand money. They understand the flow of money. And money is one thing, wealth is another. I always say wealth is what you've got when somebody takes all your money away. But there's people who are financially educated, and they will suck that money right back out of the population, and it will be in the same pockets where it is now. And so we had this interesting conversation. And he was saying, well, there's a new paradigm developing in business where people like me and him, he was obviously doing it, and he was talking to me about it. He said, there's a whole new paradigm in business that's cooperative, where people who really want to make a difference on the planet can actually attract that money and do something better with it than where that money is now. And I really liked the young man, and I liked the conversation. And he introduced me to this concept of what we know as network marketing. And I had no idea I was a musician. I never sold anything. I definitely wasn't into sales and marketing and all that. But I was into the redistribution of wealth. And at that point, because I loved myself, I knew that I deserved my fair share, 16 million or not, that wasn't the issue. But I deserved the money to bring up my child and show her that this is actually a good world, a good planet, because I went all the way to the other side of the world from where I grew up, running away from the bad things. And as I said before, realizing the bad things were still all in my head. So now I had to change my story about money, because before that time, I said if somebody walked in here into my plateau with $1 million suitcase, I'd tell them to take it away. I wouldn't say, just leave me a few thousand so I can have a comfortable life or something. I didn't want anything to do with money. And now the story changed to I need the money to bring up my daughter. And therefore, I had to open up and walk against that big wave of negativity that I put out and say, okay, so if we do it the right way, I actually deserve money coming my way so I can make a difference on the planet. Not just bring up my family safely, and get a mortgage and all. I didn't want any of that. And so that conversation was very stimulating. And I actually joined a network marketing company that this young man was in. And it was quite an experience, because it was like day and night, really, the guy I was to the guy I had to become to be successful. And in the whole process, not sell my soul for the money, because I wasn't going to do that. Right? So this is now 16 years later. My daughter is now 18. We moved out of the Buller Gorge to Golden Bay, which for a lot of people, that's really remote, 12 minutes out of Takaka towards the end of the world, I call it, when you go from Takaka to Collingwood and then to the Farewell Spit, and there's the end of the road. And that's remote for some people, but for us, coming out of the Buller Gorge, that was moving back into the world. And from there, I basically built myself a very successful business and felt good every day about the money I'm making comes from making a difference on the planet by giving people something that I know they need, and they don't know it necessarily. Very few people then, this is now 16 years ago, very few people knew then that what isn't in the soil isn't in the food we eat, and therefore isn't in our body, and our bodies are mineral deficient. And I make a step back, because when we realized that was when Anna was pregnant, and while we did a home birth in the middle of nowhere, we did have to have a midwife because she was 47. And so midwife brings with her all the medical paradigm and the whole system. And so she did a blood test, came back and gave her mineral tablets and said, "You're very mineral deficient." And we were the healthiest, happiest people on the planet. There was no way there was anything wrong with us. And definitely I wouldn't trust the medical diagnosis like that. So we went off to some friends of ours who were natural health practitioners, chiropractor, naturopaths, and so on, and got both of us tested in many weird and wonderful ways by our good friends. And whatever they tried, whatever they tested us on, the outcome was we were both very mineral deficient. So with that goes a little warning to the young people out there whose idealism says eat local. Well, we did that so extreme that when you for 10 years eat local only from a soil that's very deficient, because New Zealand soil isn't very rich in minerals, right?
Yeah, certainly doesn't have selenium. Incidentally, not good for pregnancy when they're doing lambing and things of that nature. The New Zealand farmers have learned to supplement the sheep feed with selenium tablets, and that instead of getting 30% stillbirths, they only get about 1%. It's quite an interesting one. Anyway, I'm sorry, Manfred, we're going to have to go to a break. We'll be right back, ladies and gentlemen. You're listening to the Vinny Eastwood Show. Remember that this is listener-supported radio, so if you want to support this and make sure this kind of dialoguing and interesting stories about people's lives that might trigger something for you and actually mean something to your life and what have you, go to thevinnyeastwoodshow.com. That's Vinny with a Y because it's the most important question, and Eastwood as in go ahead, make my news. And make a donation or start up a subscription. I said that really weird, I know. Oh, there's also a Kiwi bank account there as well. Plus a whole bunch of great sponsors. And if you're listening to this show on the radio or off the website with the MP3s, there's also YouTube versions available. There's a YouTube link on the homepage, and there are also other radio stations all around New Zealand that play this show regularly as well, and that's under the affiliates on the website as well. We'll be right back. Don't you go anywhere, folks. And we're back with Manfred, the Wellness Mentor, and you were talking about how a lot of people get the. Let me just say, this is a very, very widely experienced phenomenon. People letting their idealism get in the way of the facts. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That was what you were just talking about, and this is kind of universal, isn't it?
It is. It is. It's one of the, I call it the human condition.
Oh, in fact, I made a point about that earlier. I said that love and compassion are much a part of human nature and the human condition as, say, like incompetence or fear and pain. But we usually only mention it when we equate it to the fear and pain and the negative things. Why is that? I think we've got our priorities upside down.
We should do. As generalization, yes. So we got to the minerals in the soil, and like most New Zealanders by now know there's no selenium anywhere in New Zealand in the soil. But selenium is just one trace element, and you mentioned the lambing and the success rate with supplementing selenium. Well, that is huge, but that's what the difference it can make to have one trace element or not have it. Well, there's lots of trace elements missing in the New Zealand soil, and there's more and more talk about it. And especially the way we grow commercial food. What you get in the supermarket looks like food, but there's no nutrition in it. And that's why we got obesity, because we got an epidemic of overeating while starving, because there's nothing in it. And so on, people craving more hollow food. But we were eating the best food on the planet. We were eating fresh out of our own biodynamic garden. We made such an effort putting seaweed on the compost and eating seaweed every day. We were the last people who should be mineral deficient. I could not believe it. But when I tested it with my three close friends, they wouldn't make that up. And they did different methods of testing. And so I had to give in and realize, okay, we both actually really deficient. And it slowly made sense. But once I accepted that we were deficient, well, the pills that the midwife gave Anna, that wasn't food. That was something made in a laboratory. That had no place in our lifestyle. Right? We had no pills. And so I was looking at whole food. And in those days, the only thing I could get for Anna while she was pregnant was a product called Raunigg, which most people know, most women know about it at least. And Raunigg, of course, is made from vegetables, fruits and vegetables grown in Germany after Chernobyl. So here I am in New Zealand, got away from Chernobyl as far as I could, being rather happy about that. I left before Chernobyl happened. And here we are now. My wife's pregnant and she's consuming European vegetables after Chernobyl as the best supplement we could find. So by the time it took probably 2 years after she was pregnant, I heard about this other product that I'm really passionate about now, but I wish we would have had it at the time when Anna was pregnant or when we both needed minerals all of a sudden. So it took me quite a while to find a product that was food, right? Raunigg is food, but it came from the wrong place. So I looked and looked and looked for mineral supplementation. How can we get minerals in our cells that are not in the soil and not in the food? And the farmers know about it. The gardeners know about how important minerals are in the soil, but the doctors don't know anything about minerals. There's no doctor who will say, oh, you need a liquid organic whole food mineral supplement to make sure you get all these trace elements that are not in your food. So that's basically what I found and got really passionate about and started distributing this product called Body Balance. And that was 16 years ago. And it was hard then because most people weren't aware of mineral deficiency yet. But I had enough passion and I was fresh, like people have all kinds of opinions about money and supplements and especially network marketing and all those issues that I found out. I had no idea. I've been in the bush for 10 years and 15 years outside the system. But I had enough passion to make this business happen. And 16 years later, here I am. I've been around the world with my daughter several times, visiting my family in Austria and coming over here to the States where I'm actually speaking from now because I'm over here to work with that company that's a 30-year-old company in San Diego, family-owned, and I know the family very well by now. And we're just working on another product, another whole company that we're developing that's addressing the epidemic that's out there of now, when I was young, when I was a music teacher in Austria, I drank 15 cups of coffee a day. That was just filtered coffee. You go in the teacher's room every break and have 2 cups of coffee with milk and 3 teaspoons of sugar. And that was 45 spoons of sugar a day just in my coffee, just at work. And nobody said you're crazy. That was just normal. Everybody else did. And I smoked 2 cigarettes in every break. 2 cigarettes, 2 cups of coffee, and go into another 50 minutes. That was normal. I can't believe it now when I look back at that. But that was that was how in Austria as a music teacher, that's what you did. And then, of course, eat lots of cakes and lots of sweets as well. So the amount of sugar. And now I know that sugar is one of the worst enemies of human health. And it's just got worse and worse and worse. So when people started drinking espresso coffees, more than 3 a day, and eventually the coffee didn't do it anymore. So what comes next is these energy drinks, Red Bull, V, and whatever they're called. The cheaper ones are much worse because it's only cheaper because of the ingredients being real rubbish. And so we started coming up with the idea a while ago that the part of people being so unhealthy is that they're craving energy. And the true energy for the body comes from the minerals in the food. If there's no minerals in the food, there's no energy in that food. So then we get energy from stimulants like coffee and sugar and whatever other substances for apparent energy. But it's like borrowing energy from your own future, right? So we're not only in debt on our credit card to the bankers, that's one debt, but we're in debt to our body by borrowing energy from our body's future when we have stimulants, right? And that's a whole story. I could, I'm very passionate about it, and I could talk about it for a long time.
Yeah.
So,
well, see, I've tried the Body Balance on a lot of their products, and they're quite amazing. And in fact, I was thinking about this about maybe about a week ago about the relationship in terms of effects on the body that huge effective nutrition has versus drugs or stimulants. And it turns out that if you're, let's say, incredibly healthy and you're getting in nutrients, minerals, all your sunlight, and everything the body needs every day, omega fatty acids, there's basically like a hell of a lot you really need to be thinking about. Everywhere from what you're sleeping in, or if you've got a clock radio next to your bed, which shoots up your adrenal gland systems in the morning with that sharp alarm, or whether you're getting bathed in EMF radiation by it, or anything else. You basically just imagine for a moment, ladies and gentlemen, that you are at war, that the authorities and the medical establishment and the government and everybody else and the media have basically declared war on your health. And they are trying to kill you in every single way, in every single minute of every single day. That's how much mindfulness you need about your health, in my opinion, if you want to get on top of it. And I'm still not on top of it myself. That's how bad it is.
Yeah.
All right. And I think what the main principle here is there's actually too much to think about. Conveniently, this is the great thing about capitalism, is that there's people out there who think, how can I stop you having to think about, I don't know, maybe 20 out of the 1,000 things that you need to do? Oh, here's a multivitamin. What about if you wanted to get rid of 10,000 of those 100,000 things you've got to worry about? Oh, here's a way. What about if we're talking about everything? How many different products would it be? It'd be quite a lot. That's the problem. You got to take personal responsibility. You got to live your life in a way that is actually supportive to your health rather than detrimental to your health. And I think actually the main thing is not about realizing what you're putting in and its nutritional value per se, but if you're living in an urban centre, the main thing is simply to avoid the things that you know are toxic and dangerous, which are everywhere.
So as a wellness mentor, the difference for me between a coach and a mentor, like if I go further back, 30 years ago or 20 years ago, if you met me, I knew everything you should do, and I was preaching to people. No, I didn't make any money out of it. I was just so passionately into health that everybody had to hear about it. And there's always those people around who tell everybody what to eat and what not to eat and what's good for them. And so that's just when you're young and passionate and you sharing what is your truth and you put it on everybody else, right? Then I became a bit older and I became a coach where I would help people when they asked, right? And the wellness mentor to me means as a mentor, I support people on their journey. I don't tell them what to do. But the simple thing that is part of this mentorship is if I asked you, write down what you eat, what you drink, how much you sleep for just a few days. 3 days is enough, but a week would be more ideal, right? And then I get you, not me, I get you to look at what you've written down. And I say, well, which of those things do you know are good for you? And which of those things you do every day are not so good for you? And everybody knows, right? Not in detail, but it's enough. What you already know is enough to look at, okay, if the coffee isn't good for me, the alcohol, the tobacco, the not enough sleep, on and on and on. These simple things we all do every day, And then I'd say to you, so if you do less of the things that you know are not good for you and more of the things that you know that are good for you, your life will change. And rather than saying something really radical, like everything you eat is rubbish and you should eat something completely different, that's too hard for people. But eating a little bit less rubbish, smoking a little bit less, drinking a little bit less, and sleeping a little bit more, and just drinking a little bit more water would get you into a better place. And from the better place, you can become even better, and then better, and then better. But letting people make their own steps. And as the wellness mentor, I'd just be like a mirror. I'd say, okay, you can talk to me about the changes you're going to make, and then check back in with me, telling me the changes you actually made. And you're not doing it for me, right? And I'm not pushing. I'm just holding up the mirror, basically. And
it sounds very similar to the psychology method of the Ross Institute. They tell you, you know how a lot of people have like past grievances and things like that, and they feel really guilty about it. In a lot of cases, they just ask them, so why do you feel guilty? What did you specifically do? Oh, I allowed myself to be really? Did you allow yourself to be raped, or did you just get raped and there was nothing you could do about it? Well, there was nothing I could do about it. Okay. Do you feel guilty about that anyway, even though you didn't actually do it? I'm like, yeah. Well, how long do you feel that you need to feel guilty about it for? Just very simply putting it in a logical step. And in that way, you're not actually forcing people who are deeply traumatized. And I think, in my opinion, having an excess of body toxicity is a form of trauma.
It is.
A constant, just like all other traumas, they're constant and you learn to live with them, whether they're past, future, or present, like anxiety, depression, and just pain right here and now.
It is like a war inside. We're fueling the war inside, and we're looking at war outside, and we don't like it, but we're doing it inside through what we put in there and what we don't put in there. So after years of helping people with their health, I realized that most people aren't really into, like, I'm not into health and wellness. I'm into optimum well-being, right? So there's no end to the journey towards optimum well-being. It's like a carrot on a stick, It's the better I get, the more I can see more things that I can change. And this has been going on for 30 years for me, right? So I'm saying it's like a carrot on a stick. In a way, you can never reach that optimum well-being, because the higher up the mountain you go, the further you can see, right, on a clear day. And so after 30 years and being fully passionately on this journey, I can still do things to fine-tune. I still do things I shouldn't be doing, that I know if I didn't do those, I'd be even better off. And then I do a few steps in that direction, on a regular basis. Like, there's times I drink beer and then I like the beer, and then I drink more and more and more and more and more often. And then I go, okay, I have to let that go. And being, as I said, Sagittarian fire monkey, I do extreme things. I stop drinking, or I stop smoking, or I drink a lot of water and do long fasts. I used to do long fasts. I'm not into fasting now. I wouldn't suggest it. It's too extreme. So I'm now close to my 60s. I'm less and less extreme, and I realized that a lot of what I thought was health improvements that I did in my younger years were actually quite extreme and quite unhealthy. So the key word in all of this wellness talk is really balance, finding the balance. And that's why finding a product called Body Balance, the company called Life Force, those two things is all we need more life force, more balance. And that brings me to the Chinese term for life force is Qi, right? And about 12 years ago, I met the Chinese Qigong master who moved from China to Wellington and came to the South Island, did a talk. And I've been studying with him now for the last 12 years, Qigong. And the Chinese have got the best wellness knowledge on the planet. I have no doubt about it. I've studied a lot with Western teachers, and everything we know about wellness, the Chinese know in more detail. That's how they got to acupuncture, right?
I would say that would make sense. After all, they've got thousands of years of history that didn't get destroyed and taken over and then lost and what have you.
Yeah, 8,000 years of wellness history. And of course now it's all pretty much being destroyed. Just like in the West, the pharmaceutical companies have taken over our health, right? And the Chinese...
what did it happen? It was the... have you heard of the Flexner report?
No, that I haven't heard before.
Well, it's like in the 1800s or something, the Rockefeller Health Foundation sent this dude named Flexner around to all of the different medical institutions, whether they be allopathic medicine, homeopathy, naturopathy, all these various eclectic disciplines, and what they do is rank them as being either very good or not very good. And so naturally he only gave the allopathic universities that were selling, incidentally, Rockefeller oil-derived derivatives, frickin' pharmaceutical drugs, high rankings, and gave everybody else the shaft. More or less destroyed and took over the Western medical industry. That didn't happen in China.
But
it's now it's happening.
It's now happening in China.
Yeah, see? It's like a little bit of a delay.
They are now treating the Chinese herbs in the same way as our pharmaceuticals from herbal medicine, which we had. All traditional medicine was herbal. They're now standardizing and, synthesizing and whatever those things are. But they're taken over by the state and very much regulated and controlled and all that stuff. Well, the main thing with healing is intuition, not intellectual knowledge. It's the intuition of the healer that's the healing, not the substance. And so, like in the old days, the woman would go out on the full moon or on the new moon or on whatever moon for specific herbs and specific parts of that plant for specific things. And it was because they had a patient with a problem, they would go and find the answer in nature by intuition. Then they learned, okay, for that problem, I go on that day when the moon is in that sign, and they had the moon up in the sky. We now have it on a calendar, and when the calendar says the moon is in a certain star sign and you look up, it's not even true, but we don't notice because we can't read the sky anymore because we look at the watch on our wrist, and now we don't have it on the wrist, we have it on the cell phone, right?
Well, it's like
the last... so far removed from nature.
Yeah, it's kind of like the last days of the Bible said, you get destroyed by lack of knowledge, and that seems to be kind of true and working out in good step. Not that I say that the Bible is the be-all and end-all of all knowledge, If you want to say one book is the only knowledge that matters... There's quite a few other. Apparently, there's libraries full of knowledge, that you can absorb.
Lots of libraries have been burned down to make sure there's only one book left.
Especially the Library of Alexandria, which apparently had all the knowledge of the ancient world, including the giants and the aliens that created our race and everything, which is now all stored in the Vatican because the Romans weren't stupid enough to burn up all the knowledge, only just smart enough to make everybody think that there was no knowledge left. We'll be right back after the break, ladies and gentlemen, at the Vinny Eastwood Show. This is a listener-supported broadcast, and also we have a few sponsors on the homepage there. We have a number of books. The Crowdfunding Revolution by Kevin Lawton is one to look at as well, because there's a number of ways of making money, and most of them involve shafting people and selling them crap and then cutting corners and what have you. That's how you become obscenely rich. If you want to do that real quick, don't listen to the show, don't do anything like that. Go to university and hang out with psychopaths, and they'll infect you and become one of them, like some kind of a business vampire, all right? Go for your life, son. Go for your life. There's plenty of them around. However, if you want to do something right by the world and you want to make money the old-fashioned way by actually making it happen from the community up and what have you, you go have a look at that book, The Crowdfunding Revolution by Kevin Lawton. There's also an interview that I did with him, so if you can search that, that would be great. There's another one there as well called, shoot. In fact, I totally messed that up because I need to have a break and a wiki leak. We'll be right back. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to hour number 2 of the fastest 2 hours in talk radio. It's the Vinny Eastwood Show, broadcasting from New Zealand, the allegedly least corrupt country in the world. Because, of course, the people who sign off all our corruption investigations are corrupt. My very special guest is Manfred, the wellness mentor. He's been telling us about this very eclectic lifestyles, to put it lightly. And like everybody else, when they first have a child, he has some kind of midlife crisis, dovetailing with a midwife crisis. And then you wind up changing your entire freaking existence, and you can't kind of change it back, just the way it was. So you've got to make it better and change it in a way that actually suits your lifestyle. And unfortunately, most people say it has to suit my lifestyle, and I don't really care how the world feels about it. I only care about me. No thought about that ripple effect there. You know how your behaviour sort of influences other people's actions? How you're sort of an example to everybody who sees you, and you influence everything, you know, that interacts with you? That ever occurred to you at all? Then stop trying to be a douchebag. You know, there's more than enough scumbaggery going around for everybody to worry about. Why should we also have to worry about benign douchebaggery as well? You know, just don't be stupid. Be mindful. You know, like Obi-Wan Kenobi would. So, Manfred, where were we?
Okay, I go on from what you just said, because what got me in the Buller Gorge and away from everything was I was really only interested in my own story. And what got me out of the Buller Gorge was I didn't really make a difference there. And I really wanted to make a difference because now I had a child, which means I had a future. You know, and our daughter's called Manana. It's really Mani and Anna's daughter is how we got to Maniana. But Manana, of course, most people know as it means tomorrow. And they often say, well, before her, we only had today. But now that we have it tomorrow, I'm kind of responsible for making the world a better place, because I want my grandchildren that I'm now going to probably have, who knows, you know. But so before that, it was like, okay, I'm at the end of the world, ready for the end of the world, and I'll be okay. And now I have to create a world that goes on and on and on for my offspring and everybody else to have a really good life, because this planet is really made for us to be in paradise. And paradise, of course, to me is a state of mind, right? Like optimum well-being, it's a state of mind. The access to that is actually very easy, and it's free and available to all of us any moment, and it's called gratitude. Because in the moment where I'm truly grateful, I'm optimally well, and one could say I'm in paradise. And then when I start looking at all the things that are wrong, I've learned to look at what can I change and not be unhappy about what I can't change. That has helped me to be a lot more well and a lot more happy than just about anybody I know, because I'm free of unhappiness. I'm not unhappy about the mess that's out there, because I can only clean up my mess and hopefully teach a few other people to clean up theirs. And then if I can help those people teach other people to clean up their mess, it's slowly but surely becoming a cleaner planet. Right?
It becomes a ripple effect, That's what anybody should ever hope to achieve in life or after death. And what I'm quite admiring about you here is that you've done the direct opposite of what some people do. Some people say, "Man, this world's a really bad place. I don't really want to bring a child into it." What you did is, there's a child coming into the world. Guess I better make the world a better frickin' place.
That's right. Yeah, it brings responsibility for the future. So now my daughter is 18, Manana. She is, of course, amazing, like everybody's child, or most people's child. Some people don't think of their kids as amazing. But so, as I said before, I got back into the world and into making money and building my own business because I'm unemployable. I can't work for a boss. I can't work in somebody else's time. I can't work in an office in a certain place where I have to be there from 9 to 5. That would be impossible.
You
for
suffer
me.
from the same mental illness that I made up. Employophobia, a fear of gainful employment.
Yeah, well, it's called free. Like Manfred means the free man. And the more I realized that as an adult, the more I had to live up to that and be free. And the most important thing to be free of is unhappiness and negativity. Well, what got me into the hermitage was I was a purveyor of bad news. I looked for bad news, I told bad news, and there was plenty of it around. Now I'm turning that into the other direction where I'm saying, well, there's lots of good happening every day on this planet that nobody reports on, and everybody has a chance to be optimally well. Everybody has a chance to be free if they can free themselves of the unhappiness, because 80% of our well-being is in our mind. No matter what supplements you take, no matter how much money you spend on being well, if the mind's negative, you won't have a good life. And disease comes mostly from the mind. So the body doesn't need much.
Make a point there, because it's actually reciprocal. It's like a two-way triangle sort of work in there. So you can be as happy as Larry and not be taking any supplements, and all of a sudden your happiness will eventually peter out and die. And you can be healthy as hell, but be really depressed, and your health will suddenly will decline eventually. It's like everything has to have the symbiote balance.
Yeah. And there's always the examples of the guys who smoke and drink and get to 89 and die quickly, and you go, gosh, other people are doing so much effort to be healthy and die a horrible, slow, long death on cancer or something. So we never know why somebody dies the way they do. But one thing I learned is nobody dies before their time's up, and everybody dies in the way that they designed, because I'm taking full responsibility for my life from beginning to end. At the beginning, maybe I knew everything, but I wasn't totally aware of that. But in the end, I will be totally aware of that. I want to take responsibility and be totally conscious every step on that journey. So, but helping other people take responsibility rather than pointing the finger at the politicians. There is no such thing as good politicians, because it's a corrupt system that they getting into when they become a politician. By the time they got anything to say, when I was leaving Europe because it got really too bad up there, my friends were saying, no, you should stay here and get into politics and make the changes here, don't run away. And I was saying, well, if you get into politics, you got to say yes, 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 yes to these worst people on the planet in order to even get in and get up there. And by the time you got any power to change the world, you that old asshole that the young people like I was at the time,
Yeah, that's like it's like saying, oh, there's good mafia dons and stuff like that. No, there isn't. There's an induction process to breed the good out of you and to prevent you from being able to continue to do it. All right? Yeah. It doesn't matter how good you are. Even if you're still in Parliament and you're still good, you won't get any really good legislation passed that'll actually change the game as it's played. I mean, how exactly do you expect to win in a rigged game? You have to cheat, is the answer. And these people are too morally praiseworthy to cheat. The cheaters at their own game. Mm. And so they've accepted defeat on nearly every single major front to be enslaved by scumbaggery and believe that because they didn't bring a child into the world, as the world goes really terrible about them, that they've got something to feel good about themselves for.
Yeah. I say there's no hope for the masses. There's only hope for the individual. And if one individual at a time wakes up and then tells a few people and they wake up and they tell a few people and they wake up, then there is hope, you know. And there's always been a few people, like the famous ones we know, that had a great story to tell and they taught it and their people told a great story. First it was a good idea that one person had. If that one person doesn't share the good idea, nothing happens. Nobody knows about it. But if they share their good idea and a few people believe it, then they become a group which the others will call a cult, right? Because they believe something different from the rest around. So you got the cult, and if the cult grows big enough, it becomes a political party or a religion or a very successful corporation.
And it becomes part of our culture.
Yeah. And because it's all corrupt, it more often than not turns into a not so good thing rather than a really good thing. And so...
Because they get a lot of power. And what does power breed? Oh, yeah, that's right. Corruption.
Yeah.
And this is ironic. Isn't it ironic how... And I think this is kind of the paradigm that you and I have both switched onto and many more people are switching onto. You cannot be given any power from authority. All right? Power comes from within you. And not by what you will obey the authorities in doing, whether they be the authorities in medicine, the authorities in science, or authorities in media, or politicians, whoever it is. As long as you don't have any of your own personal authority and you think you need them to give it to you, you will never have any real power. Those people who are in those uniforms don't have any real power either. They're just a shell of a person who thinks that they have power. They don't. The uniform does. As soon as you take it off and get another job, you have no power at all, and thus you're expendable. That's how the entire system is supposed to be working. Turn us into a suspendable little cash cow, kill us off all very slowly while selling us really expensive drugs and bad food, right? Which incidentally have a really interesting causal relationship, because a lot of obesity in America has now been reported to be the result of, you guessed it, pharmaceutical drugs. Inflating people with huge quantities of obesity. To treat what? Oh, their current weight loss programs and things of that nature, which have all these other side effects. So you give them more drugs and more drugs. All right, so there's these two different modes of business. One where you're making people dependent on you, and that business could either be business, media, or politics. You're making people dependent on you, giving up their power so you can take control of them and usurp their resources. Okay? Cancer patient. Is he going to say, oh my God, that's $50,000, I can't afford that? Or is he going to say, I'm going to die, I have to pay it? Of course he is, because a guy in a white lab coat told him so. The whole system is designed to make you give up your power, and you don't even really give it up. You just pretend like you ain't got any. Because that's what they want you to think. That your power doesn't really exist. And the only reason they're telling you that is because their power doesn't really exist. You look at the world and you think of it in every single way that you've been taught, in every single way that the authorities tell you it is. It's more or less the exact opposite of whatever they're telling you. Well, the health system is designed to look after your health. Well, actually it's designed to keep you sick, bro, and eventually kill you and profit by doing so. Oh yeah, that makes a hell of a lot of sense. The big food industry is supposed to feed everybody, right? No, it's actually meant to deprive you of minerals and whatnot, so you'll keep continuing to overeat more food. There's also deficient in minerals. Oh, okay. See? It just goes on and on. Watching the news is quite amusing. I'm sorry, Manfred. I was just ranting there. Go ahead.
The only power is love. Everything else is force. So
sometimes you require force to protect the things you love.
Well, apparently. But if we all loved ourselves, there'd be no problem. Everybody would take care of their own backyard and their own rubbish and support everybody else the best they can. But if I don't love myself, I can't love my neighbor as I love myself, so I start hating him because I hate myself. That's the problem we're facing. And where it all starts is in the school system, right?
Public indoctrination. The Prussian Empire figured it out, yeah.
Did you say Prussian?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know that. That's really cool. I haven't met many people who know that the Prussian army was the invention of the school system. They wanted to get to the kids as young as possible to know, the boys, of course, they're only interested in boys, but to sort them as soon as possible to know, are they going to be the cannon fodder in the first row or are they going to be the generals? And that became the school system, which, of course, today sorts the people from who's going to work at the lowest part of the pyramid scheme of the corporation and who's going to be the CEO, the top in the pyramid. And so the whole school system is bringing us into a pyramid scheme that we voluntarily, apparently, participate in until they let us retire, and then we die as quickly as possible so they don't have to pay us our freedom that we lived all our life for, so we have a freedom at the other end of the pyramid scheme, And I realized that in my early 20s, I was really lucky. I retired from that pyramid when I was 26, and I was only a musician. And I was the conductor of the orchestra, even that's the top of the pyramid in the orchestra. No? But then you got the critics behind you who just wait for you to make a mistake so they can take you off that pedestal. So that same silly battle everywhere. But we are only able to be ruled like that because we have self-doubt and we don't love ourselves. When I love myself, I'm free. I'm unemployable, of course, and the system wouldn't like it. And that's why they get at us as early as they can, 3 years of age, and they start banging us with, this is good, this is bad, The Grimm's stories turned into Walt Disney with music and film, which is much worse than my grandmother reading those stories to me. And we just got totally conditioned away from who we really are. And now my business is to help people find out who they really are, what they really want, and support them on their journey. And it's amazing how many adults have no idea who they are, what they want, what's their purpose in life. Nothing. They just do a job or get the benefit, and they're just being told by some authority who's got their power, right? What they can and can't do and how much they're worth.
I've likened this to the carrot dangling sort of thing, and it meant to be done perpetuated. And you see this exact same idea in every single strata of power and control in society. There's always a hierarchical structure that you have to go up through the ranks and da-da-da-da. So that by the time you get to the top, you don't have any original ideas. You only have the kind of things that you're being told to think, right? It's a form of sorting the wheat from the chaff, or the... Actually, a better analogy is, we're on a pond that's gone stagnant. Where does the scum end up? Right at the top. Incidentally, choking out all the sunshine and killing everything beneath it, slowly but surely, through disease and lack of nutrients. Sound familiar?
Yes. So the sooner we all become more and more unemployable and can do our own thing, like Robert Kiyosaki wrote a good book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And that's a good entry step into looking at why would I want my own business? Of course it's easier to be an employee and get so much power and have a weekend and not think about it on the weekend or after hours, while the owner of the business thinks about it 24/7 for 40 years, So yes, it's easier to fit into the system and just have a comfortable life. And people think they're free because they can have a beer on Friday night, and have a weekend and put their feet up. But what kind of freedom is that, So that brings me to, again, Manfred means the free man. When I was the wellness mentor, it's amazing when I have conversations with people on wellness, within minutes, if not seconds, they talk to me about their sickness. Like I said before, the health system doesn't care if you're healthy, right? The health care system cares for sick people. The health insurance doesn't insure your health. It only means anything to you when you're sick, right? So whenever we use the word health, we mean sick. So when I come in and say I'm the wellness mentor, I'm here to help you on your journey towards optimum well-being, instead of people wanting to know about optimum well-being, they want to know about their sickness. And so after 15 years of that game, I changed the game, and that actually changed my title in the world and my website to the Freedom Mentor instead of the Wellness Mentor. Right? So I had the wellnessmentor.com and I have the freedommentor.com, because I'm only interested to help people who want to be free. If people, when somebody is sick, I say, do you have a picture of yourself being really well in the near future? And if they say, oh, no, the doctor said I have to take those pills for the rest of my life and there's no way I'll ever be well, I can't help them. Right? So the Freedom Mentor is much more me, and I have a new passion for that. I'm looking for people who want to be free on this planet in this lifetime and experience the good life, which is available to all of us. As I said, it's 80% in the head anyway. So making the decision, you're already 80% there. The 20% is hard work, but it's fun at the same time if you do it with the right people, if you have support. And if you do something you can be fully passionate about. So for me, that was network marketing, body balance. I was passionate about it. But now I'm looking at the baby boomers, that the body balance is mostly life force. The company is mostly for the baby boomer generation. The younger people, they never die. When you're young, you don't think of being old ever. So they weren't interested in this. My daughter is now 18 and can do her own business. In the last year, I've been thinking, gosh, she's been listening to me all her life, me talking about freedom and optimum well-being and all the things I talk about and how not to be a slave in the pyramid scheme. And so she says, of course, she wants to do what I do. She's an artist. She's amazing. She's a fashion designer, artist, photographer, drama, directing dramas, and but she knows that what is her passion and her talent is not going to make her any money, because she knows enough examples for that. So she says, I want to do what you do, Dad. But how can her generation start talking about liquid organic whole food made from seaweed and aloe vera and costs, $40, $50 a bottle? Well, the young people, that's not their thing. So I've been the last year thinking, gosh, when Manana is 18, how can I help her talk to her friends about this? And at the same time, the company was looking at what is out there from an economic point of view. So the baby boomers are retiring and they're moving towards retirement homes, right? That's not our business. It's a good business, retirement homes, but I wouldn't want to be in it. So they were looking at the millennial generation, which is, between 20 and 40, say, roughly. I'm not really good with numbers, but that category of people 20 to 40, what's their life like? So most of them, even in their 40s, still are paying off a student loan and paying it off if they were lucky enough to get a job. So the company's done a lot of research, and being an American company, I'm here in San Diego with them at the moment, they're looking at the statistics over here, and student debt is the highest debt. Like we know there's a lot of credit card debt and all kinds of mortgages, but student debt is the biggest amount, and they won't ever wipe it. So it's like, as long as you're alive, you're in debt because you studied something that now you can't find a job in. There's so many PhDs and highly educated people on the street or in very low-paid jobs. And so they said, well, let's focus on that. What do those people do? And one thing they all have in common is they drink coffee, they drink energy drinks just to cope with life. And when we're looking at what that kind of coffee, like Starbucks actually puts synthetic caffeine in their coffee to make it stronger so that people go for that coffee and not any other. And there's that whole game. There's so much competition in coffee alone now. And of course, it's acidic and it drives oxygen out of your cells and it takes minerals out of your body. It's great as an enema, but not really good to put it in your mouth because it rips you off, basically. It appears to give you energy, but you borrow it from your own future, as I said before. So then they come up with the Red Bulls and the V's and the Monster and the... What are they called?
Oh, I had a great idea. I had a great idea based on this. I said that people are so in love with toxicity now that you could literally make an energy drink in a black can with a white skull and crossbones with the brand name Poison and have a big warning label that says, warning, drinking this might cause premature death. And people will buy it.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Speaking of which, ladies and gentlemen, if you wish to support poison and death and various other forms of scumbaggery, go to thevinnyeastwoodshow.com and donate today to this wonderful broadcast. And our various fine sponsors, including the High Tea Cafe in Newlyn for all your portable coffee machine needs. There's no actual portable coffee machines in there. That's just a lie. I'm sorry. I mean, I embellish a little bit because my sponsors are so great. And also the High Tea Cafe has really, really wonderful cannabis connections around with the community and information and things of that nature. There is also Blue Shield, the EMF protection device. When I unplugged mine, and I did it the other day, and I did it a couple of years ago, a friend dared me to, I started to turn into a real douchebag, like even worse than I am now. Like, this is nothing. This is nothing by comparison to the kind of douchebag I turn into when that Blue Shield gets unplugged and I start actually really absorbing all of this radiation and everything. You know, the natural resonating hertz frequency of the Earth, 7.2, right? And hertz, I think it is. And incidentally, they make you feel better as opposed to hurt, which I don't know how that works. But the frequency, especially if you've got like tuning forks and whatnot, all of them seem to like run into the tune of the strongest frequency. So what this one does, you plug it into your wall, puts out that strongest frequency, and all of the other radiation that your cells would normally interpret, based upon which the strongest one is, get wiped out, and they all attune to the really natural one. It's just cells love. So if you are having bad sleep or being angry, I have a lot of problem with anger. Maybe you can tell. That's why I became a talk radio show host kind of thing, because I also need to get it out in a number of other ways. Go to thevinnieeastwoodshow.com today and click on that Blue Shield banner. We'll be right back. And we're back with my very special guest, Manfred, the free man, the wellness mentor. Welcome back.
Thanks, Vinny.
Now, my brother and I sometimes get along very well, sometimes not. And there's a new product that you've been introducing a number of people to called Ditch the Can, which I think is actually a really good idea for energy drinks because A, they're way too sugary, and B, they're kind of toxic. In fact, I believe I saw an article where a Red Bull can was actually getting eaten through by the substance. And this is why Red Bull has decided to put a plastic on the inside rim of the can so the acidity of the drink that you're supposed to be drinking doesn't eat through the aluminium cans while they're standing on the shelf waiting for you to purchase them and mix them with vodka. So, something needs to be done about this little energy craving thing, and apparently this little Ditch the Can is for you. Take it away, mate.
Okay. So, the company here is a 30-year-old company, but they have just opened a little, what they call a sister company, which is basically a startup for the younger generation, the millennial generation. And because one thing they have in common, they want money. There's so much you can buy on the internet. You just need this unlimited credit card. And they want energy, so they drink energy drinks. And of course, those energy drinks they're drinking are not just as sugar syrup, which is bad enough in itself, but then there's all kinds of stimulants that are synthetic mostly, right? And cheap chemicals basically in a sugar syrup are not going to be good for you. But of course, the people who drink it don't care. Like you said before, if you said poison and skull and crossbones and it would shorten your life, people would still buy it. So we know that when you're young, you don't care so much about your health. But these things that are on the market now will make you age really, really fast. And we see younger and younger people with terrible diseases, right? So the epidemic out there is kind of self-destructive now. And it's really bad. So what we are offering the younger generation, and of course the older ones. I meet 70-year-old people who are still doing 2 jobs just to make ends meet, and they drink 3 or 4 wheat drinks a day just to get through their day, right? So it's not just young people. It's everybody needs more energy. And when the energy comes with the price that it destroys your kidneys and your adrenal glands, because that's where you borrow that energy from, it is not sustainable. And if it continues that way, I don't see a future for those people who drink those drinks.
I have an analogy here. I had the salesman come round to my house trying to sell us a Bernardo's like charity or something like that. Told us a story about how he used to be a meat worker and you get paid plenty of money, but you've got to stay up long into the night. You've got to be like really concentrating when you're doing all of this stuff. And they found that what a lot of the workers were doing at this meat works is they were ingesting methamphetamine. And they would do a hell of a lot more work and get paid a hell of a lot more money. And then I asked him, so let me ask then, were they spending more money on their methamphetamine than they were getting in the extra pay? And he said it was about the same. And I said, so basically, you got no benefit. You got more work done, and that's more profit for the business owner and what have you. But you didn't actually end up better out of the deal. Now that's when you're talking about an illegal drug and talking about the money, let alone all of the physical harms and dangers and things of that nature that can come along with it. And then you come straight back to the energy drinks. Is this not the same phenomenon that we're talking here? They're not quite as expensive as the methamphetamine, but the costs on your body are probably comparable.
It's not far off that, yeah. So that's a very serious problem out there, a serious issue. And so we are offering a solution, like an alternative, right? And ditch the can, that in itself, like I have friends, young friends now through this business who are DJs and run these rave parties that go on from Friday to Sunday, right? And they say there's 2 or 3 truckloads of cans of the rubbish bins, taken away after one of those events. And if they used our product, Ditch the Can, which is in sachets that are just very thin foil, right, and you put it in your water bottle, it would be 1 black rubbish bag. So we're reducing the rubbish, we're reducing the energy use. People would say, well, yeah, but cans are recyclable. They are recyclable if they get into the recycling, but how much energy does it take to heat those cans up and melt them again and make another can? So it's a lot of energy. And Ditch the Can is a good slogan. That's the name of the new company. And the first product, because we're going to bring out lots of different products, but the first one's called Chaos Gold, and it's an energy drink that has, in the US, it has actually got sugar. It's got fruit sugar, not high fructose corn syrup, but the real fructose, which is from fruit. But it's got 80% less sugar, 70% less calories, and all the stimulating things in there are actually herbs and vitamins. So there's the B vitamins in it. There's stimulants from yerba mate, from guarana, and from kola nut, and some caffeine is in it. So the caffeine content is as much as a cup of coffee, but there's all the supporting herbs that actually look after your kidneys and your adrenals rather than rip them off. It's feeding them and supporting them. So yes, it's still a stimulant. I mean, we still have to give people what they want. Otherwise, they wouldn't, Otherwise, I would tell them about body balance. Drink body balance instead of V or Red Bull. Well, that doesn't go down very well. It doesn't make sense to those people. And that's also from our place, looking at the market, right, as marketers, 80 to 85% of the people I want to talk to about seaweed and aloe vera aren't interested.
Wow.
But they drink energy drinks. And the other thing is they drink Red Bull and V, and they promote the company by standing on the corner with the can and all that. They never get a cent back from that company that they're promoting. They may even wear their T-shirts and their hats and whatever, right? They don't get paid for it. So really the main thing is offering people an alternative to drinking the poison. But if we just go out there like missionaries and say this is really bad for you and this is healthier, most of them won't be interested. But
I also have an analogy on here in terms of the young party people, because when my mother was doing the body balance thing, there was also another product on from the Life Force product list, which was amino charge, as a powder of pre-activated amino vitamins and also a glycerin drop. And I think I discovered that this is the ultimate sleep deprivation concoction that has ever been invented by mankind. Only when combined with coffee, though, right? First time with a friend of mine, we went to a party out in Onitangi on Waiheke Island, and we drank the coffee, I think, at about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And we were still wide awake as bunnies without any energy drinks or anything else like that at about 9 o'clock the next morning.
Wow.
There was one time I was actually driving from Waiheke Island to Christchurch, and we did it in 20 hours, and I had not slept the night before. And I came in, got to sleep at 8:30 that night, and woke up exactly 8 hours afterwards, completely refreshed. What I found was very interesting about this concoction is that it not only made you not even feel sleepy, but it actually, to a large extent, even eliminated the need for sleep. Like, you don't even feel tired after you've slept, and you don't seem to sleep more hours as if you hadn't slept them, like as is normally the case. It was quite extraordinary.
Well, I haven't heard that about the amino charge. That's a new testimonial. But amino acids, of course, feeding the brain, and your alertness and everything would go up. I haven't tried it myself with coffee. I'm not a coffee or energy drink drinker, but now that I'm talking about Ditch the Can, Chaos Gold, I got to like it because it hasn't got the sugar crash, right? It hasn't got the synthetic chemicals that take you up fast, but then really crash you down. And then you have to have, of course, another one to not get too far down. And that's why I meet people who drink 10 monsters a day. There's this other one that comes close to the picture you gave us with the black can with the skull and the crossbones. It's called Demon. When I walk in the supermarket and I walk past the aisles of the energy drinks, and this one is called Demon, it really is like a demon jumping out in front of you like a ghost.
Yeah, I mean, what's next? Child sacrifice, the energy drink.
So the one that we're bringing out in the next few weeks, like at the moment in New Zealand, we're bringing in the American version, which, as I said, has a little bit of sugar in it. But the one we're releasing soon that is made in Australia for us, for the Australasian market, will have no sugar in it. There's a few good alternative sweeteners, and I'm not talking about aspartame as an alternative sweetener, but there's stevia, xylitol, and another one called erythritol, which is actually the better one of the three. And we have chosen to use that one. So we'll have it totally no sugar. We have the alternative sweetener on it that's totally natural and healthy. And it tastes wonderful. It's got a little bit of baking soda in it, which of course also makes it alkaline rather than acidic. But the side effect is it makes it bubble up, which is nice. It's a nice, refreshing drink. And what I enjoy is you don't get the shooting up and then crashing down. You get a nice lift that seems to last forever. So when people drink 3 or 4 cans because they have to counter the crash, they could get away with just 1 Chaos Gold for roughly about the same money as they pay for 1 can of whatever they're drinking now. So it will save money, but it will save lives. And what I'm passionate about is it will make money for people. Like, how about getting paid for drinking energy drinks? See, the other companies spend millions. Red Bull spends billions on advertising, but they don't give you anything for drinking their Red Bull, right? What we do is we share the profit with the people who lead to the profit, which I believe is the future of marketing or future of business, because any company that makes a profit from people talking to other people about their product and not paying those people will soon be looked at as out of integrity. In 10, 20 years ago, that wasn't possible. You couldn't measure who told who and all that. But thanks to computers now, on the internet, anything you buy on a good website, a good quality product, will have an affiliate link, and it will say, tell a friend and we give you something for it, right? It's becoming normal. And that's really the nature of network marketing, is word of mouth advertising from people who know, like, and trust each other, and spreading it that way. And now any company with a computer system can actually control who told who and set up a multi-level pay structure to reward all those people who led them to the sales and to the profits, and share a good portion of the profits with the people who led them to it. That's the new economy. And on ours, as on the company side, they will reward people instead of paying advertising companies, right? And on the distributor side, where I am, it's you get so much more for your dollar, because you get a community and you get the support, and you can actually become financially literate and then grow a business where you're your own boss, and you can actually learn to keep some of that money. Because as I said before, if you gave everybody $16 billion and they have no financial literacy, they just spend it and it's all gone in a very short time. It's gone again, right? So we support each other in that whole process to do with human relationships, with health, and with money. And that's where I can see love and money in one bubble together, with nothing in between. Like, not many people can talk about love and make money from it, and nobody pays me, right? The people who listen to me when I talk about love, they don't pay me. The company pays me really well for me to go out there and share my message that you can only ever let as much love in as you have for yourself. And if you don't love yourself, nobody can love you, right? And so we're all in these relationships pretending I love you, but I can't love you if I don't love me, right? So that message wouldn't make me money easily on this planet, but people love to hear it, right? And so I've been traveling around the planet now for 15 years with that message, and I've made a lot of money at the same time. And I haven't sold my soul to any devil or any system out there. I'm just having a ball and by helping other people. So that's all that's available. And this game with Ditch the Can, of course, is much more fun for the young people, right? And, of course, there's a lot of young people now that are very health conscious. So we have them as two separate companies, Life Force and Ditch the Can, but I can see them crossing over really well, because the young people that are into health will drink Body Balance, but if they're not yet into health, they have parents and uncles and aunties who need the Body Balance. And the older people who are in life force all have kids and grandkids who are drinking those horrible energy drinks, and they have something better to offer them. And more kids come out of university with no job, or just out of high school with no job, or very low-paying, very insecure jobs. And this is actually a career path. Network marketing is the business of the 21st century, as Robert Kiyosaki says, and it makes total sense to me, because the other paradigm is going downhill really fast. And so I don't trust that there's going to be any money for me to retire on. But of course, when I do what I love to do, why would I want to retire? Retirement is an industrial concept from the Industrial Revolution, where before we had a good life on the farm was hard work, like I had in the Buller Gorge. Then we thought moving to the city and working in a factory was easier, and that's where the retirement was offered. But now we can have both. We can have the time and freedom to grow food. The people who want to grow food can do that, but they also can have money. When I did that 16 hours a day, I had no money. And I can tell you from experience that it's easier with money. We still grow nearly all our food, and we're having a great life in Golden Bay, but it's much easier with money. And so that's out there on offer. If you want me to give a website, Vinny, I can give a website for people to look at, because, of course, when you Google it, you end up on somebody's website that you don't know, and why support them when you can support Vinny and Ben and myself?
Oh, yeah. Well, absolutely. Well, if you chuck me the links and what have you, I'll put them up on the website, as well as just, of course, give those links out to the listeners, because this show's kind of like a bathtub. It doesn't work very well without a plug or two.
So I made a simple short link, which is DTC for Ditch Again, DTC number 4 and you, DTC4U.com. And you got my details there, but if you go to that site and you are interested, you got my contact details there, let me know you heard about it from the Vinny Eastwood show, and we make sure that we're supporting Vinny as well, because he's doing a great job here.
So I'm told. There's also the other element here I want to kind of stress to people, is basically you do have to, and I believe you have a moral obligation, to support people who are resisting the kind of products, resisting the kind of business practice that you don't want to see anymore, right? You have a moral obligation to do so. I'm not trying to say, Bible thump you into buying the products, but as I mentioned in previous segments, in every single way, every single day, every single minute, there's some kind of scumbaggery going on, and it's trying to make you sick. So, a little bit every day. In any way you can. Try to oppose it. And if you're not going to directly oppose it yourself, then support people who are opposing it in your stead. I'm opposing the mainstream media apparatus, who wouldn't know a real interview if they came across one and bit them in the ass, because people are now so used to pre-prepared and post-produced interviews that they literally don't know what a real interview sounds like anymore. I don't like that. There is a wealth of knowledge out there with people who've had amazing lives. And Manfred, you said earlier on in the interview, it's a long story. I don't know if we've got time, and I encourage you to say that we've got time. And if I might say so, it was quite an interesting and awesome story. That's one thing I've learned in nearly 4 years of radio, is everybody's got a story. And if you're really listening, actually having a real conversation with somebody who's got quite the story to tell, you gain something that mainstream society wishes to deprive you of in the main: perspective. They don't want you to know. how things really are, how you can change your own life, how you don't need them anymore. You don't need to suckle at the teat of the satanic goat in order to obtain your rich, milky goodness. Allegedly. Apparently black magic works for some people. I'm not keen. I'm going to try and... in fact, here's a great joke to kind of end us on. Two enlightened masters are sitting down together, having a cup of tea. And one of them decides to tell a joke. So one of the ascended masters says, hey, how many ascended masters does it take to change a light bulb? And the other ascended master goes, it's not my job, that's the light workers. All right, so Manfred, the wellness mentor, DTC4U.com, not in any way related to Halliburton's website or Dick Cheney's bumper sticker DU for you, which is .iraq.com. It's just totally random. I'm sorry. We'll see you again sometime, ladies and gentlemen. Go to the VinnyEastwoodShow.com and sign up today. I know that things are really bad, worse than bad, and they're just only going to get worse. So at least you can listen to some really nice stuff and have a good time once in a while everything goes to hell in a handbasket around you, and at least perhaps encourage you to do something a little bit about it. Believe me, you don't need me. You can do something great by yourself. You don't need any other radio show hosts or any media or any real information. Just get yourself some experience. Do the right thing for once, you know. And if you're doing it all the time, good on you. And if you're just listening anyway because you like to have a few laughs, good on you. There ain't nothing wrong with that. Ain't nothing wrong with enjoying the end of the world, and there is nothing shameful about shameless self-promotion. This is the Vinny Eastwood Show, the most awesome radio show in the frickin' world, signing off. Thank you, Manfred.
No matter where you live, globalism affects you. Did you know that the Vinny Eastwood Show has more subscribers than New Zealand Herald TV and is New Zealand's most popular YouTube news channel, where warm-hearted humour and a list of awesome guests talk about crucial issues which the mainstream media ignore. A show where you, the listener, can phone up with questions, comments and suggestions of guests. Vinny is building a hub to connect truthers with raw information they need to become active. He can help you gain further skills such as website building, producing audio and video, and creating revenue streams in your own multimedia environment. Because Vinny supports such a wide range of people in the truth movement, he is not government or corporate backed and relies entirely on your donations. Give now, give generously, or subscribe for $10 a month for access to ad-free video archives. Just visit the VinnyEastwoodShow.com and click donate.
Do you realise every day we are being put under constant stress from wireless radiation? What's worse is that you don't even know that it's happening. It puts as much stress on our body as if we had a constant viral infection, draining our energy and sapping our strength, or just making us irritable and fatigued. These wireless fields are being emitted from computers, microwaves, mobile phones, power lines, and any electrical appliance. Now there is a solution. A group of research engineers in New Zealand have come up with an active shielding device that shields you from wireless radiation at a cellular level. Blue Shield comes in 3 models: a household, portable, and USB that plugs into any computer. The great thing about Blue Shield is it is very affordable and guaranteed to last. A one-off purchase will see you being protected for years to come. Visit AmericanFreedomRadio.com and click on the Blue Shield banner. Blue Shield, brought to you by the VinnyEastwoodShow.com.
If you take an active interest in maintaining the optimum health and well-being of yourself and your family, the New Zealand Journal of Natural Medicine is the magazine you've been waiting for. Having taken Australia and New Zealand by storm, the New Zealand Journal of Natural Medicine is now available in the UK and Europe. Visit www.nznaturalmed.co.uk or call 01626 337 531 to order your copy now.